For the record, I will do a roll call to verify which commission members are participating this evening. Let the record show we have Commissioner Ellis, Glenwinkle, Nye, Winter, and a call. Commissioner Lawler is absent and excused tonight. So we are now at Commission Communications. Commissioners, are there any communications this evening? Nope. So we will move along to staff communications. Staff, do we have anything tonight?
Good evening, Chair McCann. I'm Anna Slatinsky, Planning Division Manager for the City of Beaverton. I do have a couple of updates. One of them is that the city is going to be kicking off the update to the transportation system plan this year. And with the funding and staff and consultant team in place, the city is going to be creating a couple of different opportunities for stakeholders and community members to engage in the process. And one of them is going to be creating a community advisory committee. This is a volunteer opportunity that is an opportunity for Beaverton residents, a representative of local Beaverton businesses, or representative of real estate development company, affordable housing nonprofit. And if you're interested in participating in the transportation system plan update as a community advisory committee member, you can apply online on the city website at beavertonoregon.gov/go Beaverton. So it'll be an interesting project. There are opportunities to follow and participate beyond being a member of that particular committee. So just something to be aware of. There's certainly lots of crossover with planning issues, and it will certainly be affecting the development process. My other update is that I'd actually like to introduce a new planning team member. Max Everett is our new planning support specialist. Max will be, among other things, doing some support of planning commission, scheduling, helping run the meetings, that sort of thing. So you will be coming across emails, et cetera, from Max. And I believe Max is there and can turn on the camera and just say a quick hello to the commission.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Max Everett. It's very nice to meet all of you. I look forward to working together moving forward.
All right. Thanks, Max. And that is it for my updates this evening.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So we will move on to new business. The first item on the agenda is the application for LU 32024-00140 Southwest 139th Partition Avenue. Case file number is PP 2023-00394, LLD 1-2023-00393, and VAR 3-2024-00139. The burden of proving that the applications are consistent with the Beaverton Development Code, comprehensive plan, and any applicable Beaverton Code provision. The criteria that must be addressed in the hearing are Development Code Sections 40.03.1 Facilities Review Committee, 40.45.15.4C Preliminary Partition, 40.47.15.1C Legal Lot Determination, and 40.95.15.1C Variance. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward these approval criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that the speaker believes to apply to the application. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to allow the Planning Commission and other interested parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal to Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Anyone who submits written comments or gives oral testimony has standing to appeal this decision. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the city to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. State and local law require commissioners to make certain disclosures. To these ends, the following questions will be asked. Does any commissioner have a potential or actual conflict of interest, ex parte contacts, or site visits to declare? Commissioner Akal?
I do not. To all three.
Commissioner Glenwinkle?
No to all three.
Commissioner Ellis?
No, this property is just shy of 4 blocks from a close family member's house. I drive by it frequently, but I've had no on-site visits, no interactions with anybody. So it's all been extracurricular visits.
Okay. Commissioner Nye,
No to all three.
Commissioner Winter,
No to all three.
and no to all three for myself as well. Does any member of the audience wish to question a commissioner about ex parte contacts or site visits or challenge the right of any commissioner to participate in this hearing? And it appears that we have let the record show we have no response. The order of the public hearing tonight will be as follows. City staff will give a presentation followed by commissioners' questions of staff. The applicant will be given 20 minutes for its presentation, followed by the commission's questions of the applicant. Then members of the public in support of the application can speak for up to 5 minutes each. Then members of the public opposed to the application can speak for up to 5 minutes each. And then members of the public who are neither in support nor opposed will then have 5 minutes to speak. After the public testimony, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The Planning Commission will then hear any final comments from staff. So let us now begin with the staff presentation.
All right, good evening. Hold on one moment while I share. All right. So good evening, Chair McCann and Commissioners. I'm Lauren Russell, an Associate Planner with the Community Development Department. The proposal before you tonight is the Southwest 139th Avenue partition. Okay. The subject site is located at 4975 Southwest 139th Avenue. It is approximately 0.35 acres in size, so just over 1/3 of an acre. The property is currently developed with a 1-story single detached dwelling and a detached accessory structure. The subject property is outlined in red on both of the maps. The map on your left is the zoning map. The map on the right side of the screen is an aerial overview. The site's located on the west side of 139th Avenue between Southwest Larch Place to the north and Southwest 6th Street to the south. The site is zoned Residential Mixed C, or RMC, and it is surrounded on all sides by the RMC zone. Just like the subject site, all surrounding properties are also currently developed with single detached dwellings. So the applicant proposes 3 different applications for this project. The first is a preliminary partition to create 2 new parcels from the existing lot. The second is a legal lot determination to determine the legal status of the subject lot. And the third is a variance to reduce the minimum side setback of the existing single detached dwelling to the edge of the proposed shared driveway from 5 feet down to 1 foot 8 inches. This is a site plan which shows the 2 parcels. So parcel 1 is shown in green, parcel 2 in purple. The existing house on parcel 1 is outlined in orange, and the shared driveway is shown in blue just north of the existing house. Please note that the driveway is not its own tract. It's actually located on parcel 1. And with an access easement, it will provide a connection from parcel 2 to Southwest 139th Avenue. And then the purple arrow, which is near one of the corners of the house, shows the side setback between the edge of the shared driveway in blue and the edge of the existing house in orange that is proposed to be reduced through the variance. Staff is recommending approval of Southwest 139th Avenue partition, subject to the conditions of approval that are shown in staff's recommendation. This concludes staff's presentation. I and other staff are available to answer any questions you may have about the project. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there, oh, apologies, I turned off my camera. Thank you. Are there any questions of staff with regard to the proposed application? So Lauren, I did have one question about some of the language um, in the application. So I understand the application is really only looking at the setback variance on parcel 1. And from what you just described, the setback is from the edge of the house to the edge of the driveway?
Yes, so this is something that's new with the Housing Options Project. So this is a new piece of code that's only been around since I guess that was summer of 2022. And this is one of the first middle housing projects that we've had come through where we're applying this standard. So in the past, the minimum side setback was always from a building facade to the nearest lot line. So in this case, to the side setback. There's a new footnote in the land use, sorry, not land use, but the site development standards for residential zones that says that the side setback or rear setback is applied from the structure to either the edge of a shared accessway or a property line, whichever is closest. And that's to account for the sort of changes with middle housing and I guess more shared driveways that are going to occur on sites.
So that code then could allow someone to pave all the way up to their property line.
I guess it doesn't prevent them from doing so, but there are other standards that control where a driveway can be located. So I think perhaps Fabio De Freitas could speak to this there might be standards in the engineering design manual, but at least in the development code, there's nothing that says that someone can't pave their yard. There are standards related to middle housing design review about how much of a front yard can be taken up by a driveway, but we don't have anything about the side yard and how close paving might be to a lot line.
Okay. All right. Then I had another question because I understand that the variance at this point is only asking for lot 1. However, when I looked at page 30 and on to 31 in the packet, there's an explanation that they are looking, it's referred to looking for a variance on 1 and 2. 1 for now and 2 in the future was sort of how the language, at least how I read it. Sorry, I need to pull it up real quick so I can read that. And I just want to make sure, whether that language needs adjusting so it doesn't sort of inadvertently approve something on a lot that we're not actually looking at right now. So it was section 40.95.15.1 C7. And in the finding, it said, the applicant states that the request to reduce the minimum side setback of the existing single detached dwelling to the edge of the proposed shared driveway from 5 feet to 1 foot 8 inches is the minimum variance needed to provide a shared driveway that can feasibly, safely, and efficiently serve the existing dwelling on proposed parcel 1 and future development on proposed parcel 2. So I guess I was reading that, just making sure that we aren't inadvertently going to approve a variance that setback is needed to provide access on both 1 and 2, when it's not really the setback that's needed. Setback isn't needed on 2, it's needed on 1.
Yeah, that's a really long sentence. So I apologize if it wasn't clear. Basically, it's getting at that the driveway location and its distance from the existing house will create a safe sort of circulation pattern for both the users of the existing house and also any future users of parcel 2 once it does get developed. but if you want me to try to make it clear, I can definitely do that.
I don't, it would be nice maybe to just clarify the language a little bit, because I think the setback is not going to be needed when they choose to develop two, and hopefully isn't used. I would like to see some buffering and other things out here.
I think the purpose of the sentence is better served where it says proposed parcel one and future development. If it says and to enable future development, I think that's the intent of that sentence.
Right. Yeah.
I can make a note that that is actually really helpful language. So thank you, Commissioner Ellis.
Okay. And I think,
and sorry, Chair McCann, just to double back on the first question you asked about the setback being from the dwelling to the driveway. I might have got myself confused when I read this report earlier. So is this to say that there's no complication here with the setback from the driveway to the edge of the property line? Like that's not in question?
So there's no standards in the development code that say how far a driveway needs to be from the property line. So we're only looking at the distance between the closest edge of the driveway and the existing dwelling.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
okay. Are there any other questions? I think that's it. Thank you very much. All right, the applicant will now have 20 minutes to present. Please begin by introducing yourselves and stating your names and addresses for the record.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Danelle Eisenhart with Eisenhart Consulting. Address is P.O. Box 2364, Beaverton, Oregon, 97075. I don't say that out loud very often. Good on me for remembering. I'm going to share my screen, do a quick little presentation. Thank you, Lauren, for a wonderful quick presentation on the site. So I'm going to keep mine pretty brief, so that, come on, there it goes. So we can have more question answer type communication if we need to. So as Lauren noted, the proposed development is a 2-parcel partition with a variance to reduce the side setback to the existing house. Parcel 2 is proposed to be developed with a duplex, which would come through later with middle housing review. But that's just a future note, not being reviewed tonight. Applicant does agree with the staff report dated April 24th, 2024, except for the proposed timing for conditions of approval 21, 22, 24, and 25. These conditions pertain to the construction of the on-site improvements, street frontage improvements, including undergrounding of facilities of the utilities. The applicant is requesting to move these conditions, being required to do construction of improvements to be done prior to building permit instead of prior to final plat. There was a discussion in the pre-app meeting with transportation staff, which I understand is different staff than current staff, to allow for construction of improvements to be tied to the building permit. The pre-app notes even note that this is an option. So we were kind of hanging a little bit on that. So we are asking for that to maybe shift these 4 conditions to a later time. Otherwise, we agree with the conditions and have no issues with that. And that is it. I'm going to leave it pretty simple because it's a pretty standard partition, and I can leave it open for questions that you may have for me.
Thank you. Are there questions of the are there questions of the applicant with regard to the proposed application? It does not look like the commission has questions.
Okay, well, I will hang out and listen to testimony.
All right, thank you very much. Right, so we are now at the public testimony portion for this agenda item. We will call testimony in groups, starting with those in favor of the application, then those in opposition to the application, and then those neither in favor nor in opposition. As a reminder, testimony is limited to the criteria that apply to the application. So now is the time for testimony in favor of the application. For those viewing via Zoom webinar, please communicate by using the raise hand feature in your Zoom menu bar. If calling in, press 9 to alert the chair that you would like to speak. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? It looks like we have none. So let's move on to public testimony in opposition to the application. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Looks like we have none. And do we have anyone who would like to speak neither in favor nor opposed to the application? Looks like we have none. So staff has stated we do not have any public testimony. So now, so we don't need a rebuttal. Do commissioners have any questions for the app? Or have any? Sorry, let me back up. Does staff have any final comments?
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Fabio De Freitas, who can respond to the applicant's comments about the conditions of approval.
Good evening, Commission. Chair McCann, Fabio De Freitas, City of Beaverton Community Development Department. Sorry, it's my first time testifying in front of this board or commission. In response to the question asked by the applicant, so postponing the conditions for the improvements that were identified post the final plat approval and at the building permit stage poses a problem for the city in terms of the city's ability to impose a condition at the time of development, which arguably would trigger only a type 1 middle housing design review, which doesn't put us into the Chapter 40 approval criteria that allows us to then require those improvements to take place in relation to that future or expected land use. So we can't condition from our standpoint, we can't condition a potential future land use application to come in with a condition for improving the right-of-way improvements that have been identified to be done prior to final plat. A little bit further, if you think about what's occurring here, we're partitioning the site into 2 parcels. The site as a whole has frontage along 139th Avenue today. Again, if we potentially delay the requirement for the conditions to apply to the 139th Avenue frontage, the parcel 2 on which future development is expected to occur no longer has frontage on 139th Avenue. So we'd be asking that applicant at some future point in time to provide right-of-way improvements along the site that is not subject to that future land use review. So I hope I haven't confused anyone by that additional information. Point being is the opportune time, the only time for the right-of-way improvements to happen now is prior to final plat approval.
Can I also speak, Chair McCann?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Fabio has stated in that, the applicant did mention that at the pre-app, they talked about the possibility of conditioning it later, like prior to building permit. And I think that's not uncommon when both of the lots are vacant and the front lot would also be coming in for development. We can require that street improvement at that time. But because that front lot already has a house on it, when that second lot comes in for development, the back lot, we'd be basically asking them to do an off-site improvement. And that's something we really want to avoid. This is a condition of approval for the partition, not for the development of that back lot. And that's how it would kind of function if we didn't require that condition to be met at this partitioning stage prior to final plat approval. So I just wanted to comment on that if you had any other questions.
Do commissioners have any further questions about that? Commissioner Akal.
Yeah, I just have a question, like, is it common to do it this way in the past? Like, have an approval that partially do finish the project later on or finish the development prior to? Maybe I'm not clear.
I don't think we get a lot of these types of developments. And, you know, Fabio, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have a whole lot of history with the city's past developments. But this is, as Lauren was saying, this is a middle housing infill development. We're trying to put housing in where it, you know, squeeze it in where it hasn't been put in the past. So we're coming across these types of situations now and probably haven't as much in the past. But Fabio, if you have anything to add on that.
Thank you, Robin. I would just add, it's my understanding, this is my first time in this situation as well here in Beaverton. Certainly seen this a lot in other places that I've worked for, but this is not an uncommon direction that we've taken in similar partitions in the past.
Thank you.
Commissioners have any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
One more thing, if you don't mind, I wanted to just kind of loop back on, if I may, Chair McCann.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a question about one of the findings early on, and you know, the potential for confusion about the variance and how many variances were being requested or approved. And I wonder if we look at that in the context of the application was only for the one variance for the setback for the existing dwelling and the driveway. If that provides enough clarity for the Planning Commission, the fact that that's what the application is for and stated in the beginning of the staff report, rather than having to amend the findings. I mean, we can certainly amend a finding, but I just wonder if you look at it in context of this is the application is for this one singular variance to provide the setback reduction for the existing dwelling, if that provides enough clarity when you look at it that way. I just wanted to throw that out there before you start your deliberations.
I think I would say, since I'm the one who asked the question, it provides enough clarity for me. And I understand that whether or not putting it in the record in that form creates a problem down the line that someone could pick apart and sort of have an argument about what the language meant. I think if the city feels good with the language, I understand it. I'm fine. So.
Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so with final comments completed, I will close the public hearing, and as a standard procedure, I will randomly poll commissioners to state their conclusions on the applications. Commissioner Akal.
I agree.
Commissioner Glenwinkle. You are muted.
Sorry. I'm in favor of the proposal. I think with the conditions of approval, it does meet the approval criteria, and I'm happy to see it happening.
Commissioner Ellis.
Yeah, I think similar. It looks like it meets the letter of the law. Just as a general note for the city, for the staff, these kinds of applications are more and more reason why we need to make sure we have a strong occupancy and short-term rental regulation law. Just looking at some of the comments from the public on this one, that's not in the bounds of this decision. I'm just saying it out loud.
Commissioner Nye.
I think it meets the approval criteria.
Okay. Commissioner Winter.
I concur with my fellow commissioners, and I'm glad we got the clarification on when the street improvements are going to be done. Frankly, I was a little bit confused about that myself.
And I agree with my fellow commissioners as well. So is there a motion?
Oh, yeah, that's me. Sorry. I move to approve LU 32024-00140 Southwest 139th Avenue partition based on the facts and findings in the staff report dated April 24th, 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. I can second that too.
All right. Is there any discussion? Okay. Vote will be taken by roll call. When your name is called, please say yay or nay. Commissioner Akal.
Yay.
Commissioner Nye.
Yay.
Commissioner Ellis.
Aye.
Commissioner Glenwinkle.
Aye.
Commissioner Winter.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion passes unanimously. So did you grab all of them, Commissioner Winter?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. It just sounded shorter when you said it. So the Planning Commission's decision will be memorialized in land use orders that will be provided to all parties that provided oral and written testimony. If you would like to appeal this decision, you must appeal in accordance with the applicable provisions in the Beaverton Development Code and the rules of the Land Use Board of Appeals. So we'll move on to the work session. Our final agenda item of the night is a work session on the Cooper Mountain Community Plan, Draft Comprehensive Plan and Development Code updates. The order of the work session tonight will be as follows. We will begin with the city staff presentation, followed by discussion and questions of staff by the commission. The Planning Commission will then hear public comments regarding the work session item. Individual comments will be limited to 5 minutes and must be directed toward the work session item. The commission may ask additional questions of individuals providing comments of staff. We will now begin with the staff presentation presented by Senior Planner Rob Zoller and Long Range Planning Manager Brian Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair Cannon, Chair McCann, and Commissioners. My name is Brian Martin, and I'm the Long Range Planning Manager with the city. Tonight, I'm joined by several members of the Cooper Mountain team, including Rob Zeller, a senior planner with the city's planning division, and the project manager for the Cooper Mountain Community Plan. Also, Anna Slatinsky, planning division manager, Alyssa Maxwell, capital planning project manager, and Lauren Russell, associate planner. The Cooper Mountain Community Plan project is planning for an urban growth boundary expansion area on the city's southwest side. We're in a phase now where we're working on the comprehensive plan and development code amendments with an eye towards seeking council approval in December. This is our third trip to the Planning Commission to review content and seek comments since the draft code came out in January. Okay, let's see if I can move forward. Tonight, we wanted to highlight 3 topics: the land use map and land use policies and how they interact with zoning, housing variety and integration requirements and how those might be applied during land divisions, and planned unit developments. Chair, if you agree, we plan to pause after the land use policy part of the presentation to allow questions and comments from commissioners before we head into the code topics. Does that sound okay with you? Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay, great. And as you can see on the slide, additional topics will be covered when we return on May 15th. So the Cooper Mountain Community Plan, as I mentioned, covers 1,200 acres in the southwest corner of the city. You can see the basic area here. It's right north of South Cooper Mountain that has Mountainside High School. 175th runs through the east side of it. Here we're planning for kind of all the things you need to have a city, including housing, roads, parks, trails, utilities, natural resources, and trees. We anticipate about 5,000 homes will eventually be in the area. And we used a racial equity framework for the project, which shows up in the comprehensive plan policies and some of the zoning approaches you'll see tonight. We included the city council's project goals in the presentation as a reminder. I won't read all these to you, but they do call for equitable outcomes, a variety of new housing, and natural resources protection, and having a safe, convenient transportation network, as well as commercial uses near where people live. One place that shows up in more of a spatial way on a map is the Cooper Mountain Community Plan concept map. So there's a community plan on the website, which is beavertonoregon.gov/cm, that describes the goals and desired outcomes for Cooper Mountain. And this map shows spatially some of the key features. So you can see natural resource protection with the green kind of fingers around the Cooper Mountain Nature Park and Winkleman Park heading down along the creeks to the southwest. Summer Creek, which is east of 175th, and a canyon that kind of curves over toward the east of the city. And a variety of treed and upland habitat areas that are like little blobs around the study area. Also, equitable access to shopping, services, transportation, and nature was important. So you can see there are different kind of land use types on the map. 2 commercial locations in the red that will have more dense housing and commercial along with them, up on 175th and down on Tile Flat. There are more apartment type zones or townhouse type zones in the orange blobs. And then housing variety throughout the study area. This map also shows how along 175th and some of the future collector routes, which are the green dotted lines, that the area is kind of set up to be transit ready. So there's a variety of uses and densities and destinations along those corridors. So for the comprehensive plan and zoning part of the discussion, there'll be 2 questions that we'll ask you at the end of this presentation. Do the policies achieve the desired outcomes while allowing flexibility for implementation? And 2, are the policies sufficient and usable to inform Planning Commission recommendations to council? So sufficient would mean, I think, that they cover the right topics, they talk about the right things. And usable is the commission has enough information to say to either approve or deny requests to change the land use designations or change the zoning map. We don't prefer to deny applications, but it's usually you have better policies if they actually kind of talk about what the desired outcomes are and what they might not be. So before we get into all the details, and for the benefit of everybody watching, the city has 2 maps. There's a land use map, which is shown in the lower left there in draft form. And those different blobs tell us which goals and policies apply in different areas of Cooper Mountain. And it also tells us which zoning districts can be used within those areas. And then, of course, zoning districts tell us what development rules will apply. And the draft zoning map is actually in the lower right-hand corner, so you can kind of look at both and see how they relate to each other. So the zoning districts have the development rules about allowed land uses, building heights, setbacks, etc., that will be applied to development within that zone. So there are 3 different land use designations over on the left side of the table, and then the zones that you're allowed to use within those, just these blobs here, are shown on the right hand side of the table. The reason this is really important is we have the city's kind of first cut at the zoning map that has the development rules in it, And we'll ask the council to approve that along with the other elements here in December. But often developers want to change, and sometimes the city wants to change the zoning, including to match future road layouts, align with future property lines when the land is divided, or because they just have a different idea of the arrangement of land uses and kind of development outcomes that for the area or for the property they own. And the policies that will help the commission and the council in the future help decide whether those proposals are consistent with the goals for this area and the desired outcomes. So before I get into explaining the table, it helps to know what the zoning districts are like. So I'll just describe that really briefly. The red ones is Cooper Mountain Community Service, the CMCS. That is a mixed use district where both residential and commercial is allowed, and there is a small amount of commercial required to ensure we do get some commercial in Cooper Mountain. The purple zone is the high density residential HDR, which has kind of a funny name because it's also a mixed use district where residential and commercial are both allowed, but there's no commercial requirement. So you can do both, but you can also do entirely residential. The orange areas are multi-unit residential, which are a higher density residential district. So you can think of apartments, townhouses, and higher density middle housing would be happening in there. And then the yellow areas are Cooper Mountain residential mixed, which is similar to RMB in the city in that you can have single detached houses and middle housing. Although in this case, you can do middle housing up to 6 units instead of just 4. So the way this table works is if you're on the land use map over here and you're inside the red, you're in Cooper Mountain Commercial, and there's one implementing zone, which is community service, and that's the one that requires commercial. And it's structured that way as only one district in here because council was really thought it was really important to have 2 little commercial centers in different parts of the study area near where people live. I'm going to skip to the bottom. Cooper Mountain Residential, the yellow area, is also one implementing district, which, as I mentioned, allows single detached and a variety of middle housing on each lot. And then the really interesting part that we'll dig into a little bit later is the purple, which is the mixed use corridor land use designation. And that allows 3 different zoning districts that I mentioned before: high density residential, which is a mixed use district, multi-unit residential, a higher density residential district, and residential mix. And the thinking here is that we have these areas that have generally multiple land use districts in them. So if you look at the purple over here on the zoning map, there's usually multiple different zones in there. And the purple areas are drawn larger to allow a future applicant for a zone change to move those districts around in a different configuration. But because we've already decided those purple areas are kind of where we want those districts to be, as long as the arrangement kind of gives us the same outcome, the policies are generally in favor of it, although the planning commission and the council will have those decisions to make. So I'll dig into each one of these a little bit. Again, you can see the one-to-one relationship here. Cooper Mountain Commercial has to be community service. There are some policies. Now, the words that show up on the screen here are paraphrases. The actual policies are in your packet. And so there will be land use. There will be policies that are more attuned to the land use map and how the commission and council might tell which designations are most appropriate where. And then there'll be some that are more zoning map focused. So in this case, it's really emphasizing that the commercial areas would be near collectors or arterials, areas of high visibility and parks and trails. So you'd have that'd be have more customers going by and be in more active areas. And zone changes would be allowed if you end up with similar commercial opportunities. Now, I guess neglect to mention, so I'll go back one, that because it's only allowed in here, if you wanted to put commercial, say, over here, that would require a comprehensive plan amendment change to change the land use map, and then as well as a zoning change. So I'll just kind of breeze through to the residential mixed. All the yellow areas are residential, would be the zone, the applicable zone would be residential mixed. And the policies generally talk about how if you're going to change the zoning map, you want to look at all the neighborhood policies that apply to all the residential districts in town. And then look at whether a zone change would provide similar outcomes for housing units, housing variety within Cougar Mountain as a whole and the different sub areas. And then, as I said, like this is the really more flexible and interesting one where the purple areas allow all three. So what this talks about for zone changes is, and you can see the real language in your packet. It repeats kind of where commercial is most appropriate, but it also talks about how if you're rearranging those zones inside the purple areas, you'd want to provide the same or similar housing opportunities, commercial opportunities, and then arrange the zones so there's equitable access to things like commercial and nature and parks. So, although I don't have the policy in front of me right now, so it's those things. It's similar to those things. For example, if you rearranged your site so all the apartments were over in one corner and the parks and the services were over here, and only single detached houses had access to those or easy access to those, it would be something to evaluate as the commission, like, oh, is that really supporting the equitable access policy? So just because that's something we don't see in the policy so much, I thought I'd give you an example on that one. So that was a lot of information. I'm happy to answer questions, but the questions we have for you are repeated on this slide. Are we achieving the desired outcomes from the community plan and the council direction with the policies, and are they sufficient for you to be able to use when you're trying to make a recommendation to council about whether there should be a land use designation change or a zone change?
Commissioners, do you have questions or comments? Commissioner Ellis.
Yeah, Brian, thank you for that. It's hell of a dense language we got here, huh? Question: have we done the exercise where we showed that for the purple area, which can have one of three zones, if over time that entire area was consumed by residential and or the entire area was consumed by commercial, would any of those outcomes be detrimental to the overall plan, the community plan, or are these land use sizings as they're put in now, they are okay in terms of like best and or worst case of still providing a minimum amount of housing? Did that question make sense? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it did. What I heard was if the purple areas are all residential or all commercial in the extremes, are we still going to achieve our goals, and would it be a problem? Would it be a problem? Let's do all residential first. We did a market study for this project that showed some market for commercial, but not a lot. And the minimum commercial requirements were sort of geared toward that. Well, at a minimum, you might expect to see a demand for this much commercial. So if we get no more commercial than that, that's fine as far as the structure of the code and our expectations. If we get more commercial, we'll be happy because people want to see, lots of things nearby. But it was geared toward getting that. If some of these were all commercial, we would get less housing than we expect. But one, that would be surprising. And two, we were required to have 3,760 or so housing units in this study area for this UGB expansion. That was the minimum metro set when they expanded the UGB, and we're shooting for 5,000. So I would say maybe not all of them, but if a couple of them went full commercial, we'd probably still be fine as far as getting the housing we're expecting.
Cool. Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Do other commissioners want to weigh in at this point? We're a very quiet bunch tonight. Do you want to keep going? Or do you want to prod us?
Well, no, I mean, you know where to find us, and we'll still be here at the end of the meeting if you think of something, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. So, you know, it is a lot to think about. Maybe after hearing, I hope the description helped understand what we were driving at. But if you think of something later, or you want to revisit it in a couple of weeks because you had another chance to look at it, that's fine. So we're here for you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Now I'd like to shift gears to development code updates. The updates that we will review tonight are largely focused on housing. These are in attachment B of your packet. Staff would like feedback on housing-related updates in chapters 20, 40, 60, and 90. We've structured the presentation to mainly focus on new content only. However, review slides are included when it's necessary to understand code changes. I'll start with updates to the housing variety requirements. In the CMRM zoning district, the draft code requires housing variety and integration for developments 3 acres and larger to provide 30% of housing units and housing types other than single detached homes, and integrate that housing somewhat to help create more inclusive neighborhoods. There are 4 housing variety categories pictured on this slide. For sites 3 to 15 acres, housing units must be from at least 2 categories. For sites larger than 15 acres, housing units must be from at least 3 categories. No changes have been made to this general approach. However, staff has updated how visitable units count towards minimum requirements for housing variety. Next slide, please. A visitable dwelling is one that integrates core accessibility features into a home. Staff has updated requirements for visitable homes in section 6050 based on feedback from Planning Commission and a meeting with Community Vision, a group that advocates for people with disabilities on housing-related issues, among other topics. Essentially, if a development includes visitable units, then visitable units may count towards the minimum required percentage of units in housing variety categories, up to a maximum of 5% of total units. Our intent is to find a way to count visitable units in the housing variety calculations, but keep the focus on a variety of sizes and types of housing. Next slide, please. Thank you. For example, if a single detached home is visitable, then it counts as 1 unit in the 30% of housing units that must provide variety. However, most middle housing units receive 1.5 units towards the housing variety requirements. This is because they receive credit for 1 unit towards the housing variety requirement because it is a middle housing unit, and then an extra 0.5 units if the unit is visitable. At the last work session, planning commissioners underscored the need for more visitable housing. This is our approach to incentivize it with multiple housing types. We will cover this topic again when we present the PUD section. Next slide. Now I'd like to shift gears to the connection between housing variety requirements and land divisions. In some cases, a site can meet the housing variety requirements because the development proposal, which might include design review and land division applications, would be submitted in a single package. However, in other cases, a site may undergo land divisions before development. Currently, land divisions require a preliminary plat that identifies features such as proposed lots and streets, but not housing types. In the draft code, the housing variety rules only apply to developments 3 acres and larger. The issue is that many lots in Cooper Mountain are large lots that may undergo land divisions before development. Without a mechanism in place, dividing larger lots into smaller lots could result in less required housing variety. Next slide. Thank you. Our proposed solution is to define large lot land divisions and add variety requirements that would apply to the resulting lots. Under this approach, a parent parcel that is 3 net acres or larger is divided through a large lot land division and results in 1 or more lots that are between 1 and 4 gross acres. The resulting lots shall then submit a land division housing plan. Land division housing plan would identify the dwelling types and number of units on each proposed lot and provide at least 2 dwelling types from the housing variety categories. Incidentally, this change would not be limited to Cooper Mountain. Citywide, all land divisions for single detached and middle housing development will need to provide a land division housing plan to demonstrate how the development would meet minimum density requirements. To sum it up, large lot land divisions are a mechanism that facilitates the acquisition and conveyance of property from one owner to another while retaining the housing variety requirements that were associated with the original lot. For example, on the left side of the slide is an existing 16-acre site. If a property owner develops the site, then housing variety requirements call for the development to provide dwelling types from at least 3 housing categories if net acreage is at least 15 acres. However, if this property owner has no interest in building new homes, they could divide the existing lots into 4 4-acre lots and sell each lot to a developer interested in building housing. Each resulting lot from this land division would then need to provide dwelling types from at least 2 housing variety categories. At the time of development review, the developers of the smaller lots would need to include the previously approved land division housing plan. In many cases, these developers might have a different plan entirely for the site. This is where the land division housing plan amendment comes in. An applicant can submit an amendment to a previously approved land division housing plan if the new plan proposes a decrease in the number of dwelling units on 1 or more lots, or a change to the dwelling types on 1 or more lots that either changes the housing variety category or eliminates dwellings from 1 or more housing variety categories. A major benefit of the new land division housing plan is that it can be amended through a Type 1 process. Currently, the only way to modify a condition of approval on a previously approved preliminary land division is to repeat the procedure that was used to approve the preliminary land division. Depending upon what other applications were reviewed concurrently, the applicant would be required to submit a new Type 2 or Type 3 application. Since the land division housing plan would involve a Type 1 review, this application can be approved faster by staff, assuming it meets the approval criteria. That concludes updates to chapters 20 and 40 and brings us to section 6036 updates, the planned unit development section. A PUD is, PUD is a type of conditional use that permits the modification of development standards to encourage innovative and well-designed developments that consider the unique Cooper Mountain context and development goals. In some cases, other applications might not be required. A PUD could eliminate the need to submit separate adjustment or variance applications. But in other cases, an application might be required, such as a new conditional use, design review, or zoning map amendment. Next slide. When an applicant is determining whether it is necessary or beneficial to submit a PUD application, they might begin with considering how much flexibility they need and what they are willing to offer in exchange for that flexibility. If a development mostly complies with code standards, but only needs flexibility with a site development standard, then it might make more sense to submit an application for an adjustment or variance to request approval for deviations from that standard. However, if an applicant desires flexibility with multiple site development standards or design requirements, then a PUD provides a pathway to greater flexibility. In exchange for that flexibility, the PUD must provide greater community benefits. To see how this might work in Cooper, we can start by looking at code standards that would apply to developments during land use review. For example, Chapter 20 includes requirements for site development standards and housing variety and integration requirements. And Chapter 60 includes requirements for open space and transportation facilities. If a development provides additional community benefits, such as additional open space tracts, pedestrian scaled urban design, enhanced design features within urban plazas, and housing that meets needed development outcomes, then they can benefit from extra flexibility with standards in Chapters 20 and 60. Next slide, thank you. For example, if a development provides housing that meets needed development outcomes, then they can benefit from extra flexibility in 3 sections, including site development standards, housing variety and integration requirements, and open space requirements. Compared to other community benefits, the PUD section addresses needed development outcomes more than any other topic for 2 reasons. First, the need for this housing is well established through analysis and research. And second, it is often hard to achieve through traditional development. The list of housing types that qualify as needed development outcomes are lifted directly from the city's housing needs analysis. They include visitable housing, regulated affordable housing, mixed income developments, and 5 and 6 plexes in the CMRM zoning district. To be clear, when developments provide housing that meets needed development outcomes, the flexibility or incentives that are provided in return are for the benefit of the lot or building that includes the needed housing. In the updated PUD's code, the housing variety and integration subsection provides flexibility with standards if the development provides housing from an even broader list of housing options. For example, if a development includes any housing type from this list, a residential care facility, visitable units, manufactured home park, regulated affordable housing, single detached dwellings built with ADUs, accessory dwelling units, or ownership units restricted to buyers earning 100% or less area median income, then they receive additional flexibility by only having to provide at least 2 dwelling types for developments 15 acres or less, or provide 3 dwelling types for developments over 15 acres. Dwelling types include accessory dwelling units, duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes, townhouses, cottage clusters, and multi-dwellings with 5 or 6 units. Compared to the standards in Chapter 20, you might recall that housing variety is by category, not type. For example, with this standard, duplexes and townhouses are in one category. So if you build both, a development only receives credit for one category. In the PUD section, duplexes and townhouses are listed as separate types, and the PUD requirement only requires 2 to 3 dwelling types depending upon lot size. Another difference is that ADUs are not listed in a housing category in Chapter 20. However, ADUs count as a dwelling type in the PUD section. And that brings us to the discussion. Our questions are, does the land division housing plan and large lot land division approach ensure compliance with housing integration and variety requirements? Are they effective enforcement tools when future development applies for design review applications? And does the proposed PUD process achieve project outcomes relating to housing variety and integration while allowing appropriate flexibility? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, would you like to weigh in on either of the questions? Commissioner Ellis.
Yeah, Rob, thank you for that. A question on the land, the large land division aspect, and this might be an exercise in absurdity, so apologies for this question, but if the idea is to make it so that when large land is divided, that the new smaller land units still retain some reasonably high density of type and amount of housing. Is there a number of reductions or a number of subdivisions that could be made where somebody could reasonably escape that goal? If I divide my 20-acre parcel into 4 or 5 acres and then divide that 5 into a couple other smaller ones, is there a point at which that quote unquote grandfathering of that original density rule kind of goes away? Or is this just not even practical and I need to be quiet?
Well, no, I mean, there are lots much bigger than 20 acres, and that was our concern before this was drafted. But the code text applies to lots like 1 to 4 acres. So and it would be attached to the previously approved land division. So you could keep amending it, but it doesn't change what you would still have to meet the intent of the variety that was in the original amendment. If you take up a unit,
you don't escape that. You don't escape that till you get under the 1 acre mark.
Right. And I'm not sure, Brian, what would we allow less than 1 acre, or would 1 acre be the minimum?
Well, my recollection, I haven't had a chance to go to that section, but my recollection is that once you get below a certain amount, like you have to kind of do your subdivision. Like you have to like lay it out and show us what you're going to do. Because there are thresholds in the code, like for a large lot line division, you have to be above 5 acres. And then like once you get smaller, some of the things aren't available anymore. And as Rob said, the number of the 30% middle housing and the number of categories like sticks with it as it goes down.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you might have noticed that, I mean, with a large lot, the categories goes down by 1. So with a very large lot, like if it were 100 acres, there would be 3 categories. And as you divide it, it's 2 with the resulting lots, because at a certain point, it gets very hard with the small lots to fit the variety. So I just did want to acknowledge that difference, but that's the only difference that we've noted.
Gotcha. Okay. And maybe kind of a similarly stupid question, but it just struck me when I was thinking about the 30% rule. When thinking about the variety in the mix, it's counting by units, not by square footage or sizing of units. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if I had one traditional large single detached home at many square feet, and I needed to counterbalance that with other types of units, I could put those in, have them meet the other types of units. They could potentially be quite small or inefficient compared to the very large footprint single detached home, right?
The smaller, I mean, if you have some larger homes, then the resulting homes might have to be smaller, but then also that kind of also helps with making homes available at a variety of price points, because if all the homes are large, they're expensive. And if we have some larger homes and smaller homes, now we're bringing a variety onto the market.
That's fair. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, cool.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have comments? Questions? Commissioner Glenwinkle.
My thoughts are similar to Commissioner Ellis. I'm just thinking that there are probably landowners out there that would want to subdivide their land, but not necessarily see it developed into high density housing. So for those owners, it sounds like they could divide down to 4 acres, or it sounds like they could divide down to 5 acres without meeting the requirements to add middle housing and the housing variety that we're trying to achieve. They could sell a 5-acre lot or build a large house on a 5-acre lot and make multiple mini homesteads basically at 5 acres without triggering the requirements. Is that right?
Well, the large lot land division wouldn't be the tool for that, but that same lot would still be subject to the Chapter 20 standards for minimum density. And so we would require a certain number of units, and if they couldn't meet density, then a plan to show how it could be accommodated in the future.
Okay, and if they didn't want to do that, then it would just not be approved.
Right, that would be a requirement for approval.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Looks like not right now. Do you have more presentation, or wait, this is it?
I see Commissioner Glenwinkle.
Oh, Commissioner Glenwinkle.
Sorry. I have one more thing I wanted to ask about, and this might not be appropriate for this meeting, but about the visitable units. The only kind of definition I saw in the presentation about that was no stairs at entry, but the image that was shown was a 2-story unit. So I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what makes a unit visitable.
Sure.
Just for clarity.
So the visitable unit, the sections, it's kind of buried deep in the packet, but I think it's in 60, 50, 25 maybe. I might check me on that, but it includes like a half-page definition that shows it has to have a visible entrance, a living area, and there might be a walkway. I think there are bathroom requirements I have to double check. But the idea is that, how this whole thing emerged is because a lot of homes were being designed as accessible within the unit, but it really didn't help people getting literally from the street to the unit, and when homes were not visitable, it's very isolating for the people in the home or for the people visiting. And so this looks at a core number of requirements, and you would have to meet all 4 of those to qualify. Now, if you listen to those 4 requirements, you might have those all on the ground floor. And as long as you can walk from the street into the home, there's a place to use the bathroom, a place to visit with people. You don't need access to the second floor to count as a visible unit. You just have those components on the ground floor or accessible by an elevator.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you.
I think I put the correct code section on the screen for your benefit, if you can see it.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Great. Now it looks like that's it from the commissioners.
And that was the end of our presentation, to confirm.
All right, thank you very much. So now is the time for public comments on the Cooper Mountain Community Plan. For those viewing via Zoom webinar, please communicate by using your raise hand feature in your Zoom menu bar. If calling in, press 9 to alert the chair that you would like to speak. Do we have anyone from the community who would like to speak? Staff has stated that we do not have any public comment. Oh,
sorry,
no,
Chair McCann. We have Mimi Dukas who would like to speak.
All right, Mimi, you may speak.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me this evening. My name is Mimi Dukas. I'm with AKS Engineering and Forestry. I am working with several property owners in the Cooper Mountain area. I've testified in prior hearings. So those property owners are the Five Oaks Partnership up at Kemmer and 175th near the roundabout. It's the Dean and Tony Sparks near Towel Flat Road and near Towel Flat Road. And then the Kobe property, which is just south of the Cooper Mountain Nature Park. I'm not speaking in specifics for those properties. It's more general about the proposed code that's been before you tonight. And I'm not sure staff covered all the things that are in the code this evening, but it was in the packet. So one of the provisions is about the housing variety. The code is written, I understand the desire for different housing variety. And I think the code provides for that. The locational requirements of dispersing it through each individual subdivision takes the housing variety to a level that I think is just unnecessary. It's important to provide that housing variety, make sure that you've got different opportunities for different types of buyers and residents. But the locational factors are limiting how we can design subdivisions. I think the intent behind the code was to make sure that there was reasonably equal access to amenities and features within the community. And I understand that goal, but it's really forcing us to design subdivisions with one hand tied behind our back. There are design components like streetscapes, senses of entry, arrival, view sheds. Those are all things that are important to not just creating a random subdivision with homes scattered about, but actually sequencing and sense of arrival. So I would say that those locational factors are just an unnecessary level of regulation. I understand the housing variety, but locational, we should have more flexibility for that. I appreciate staff's efforts on the large lot land division. I think that helps solve some things. It's still a little complicated, but at least we can kind of get there. I do think there's still an awful lot of regulations in this packet. We've heard a lot in public testimony and in the goals and policies for the Cooper Mountain planning area. We've heard about affordable housing as an important aspect for it, both regulated and market rate affordable housing. This amount of regulation reduces the affordability of homes. There's now design review required for single family homes. Each individual home needs to go through design review level 1, 2, or 3. The idea of a single family home coming to planning commission just sounds extreme to me. I will tell you, I was on a call with Tigard today, and Tigard has a very strong commitment to affordable housing and housing availability. They have changed their code so that apartment complexes are a type 1 application. Type 1. No notice, no traffic study, no parking required. Tigard is getting multifamily housing built. Minneapolis did the same thing. They have maintained rent levels over the last 8 years because they have enough housing supply. That is through all the housing inflation that we've all experienced, flat in Minneapolis. Regulations increase housing costs. So look at that lens when you look at the Cooper Mountain plan. That's all I have for this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do commissioners have any questions of the speaker?
Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have anyone else who wishes to speak tonight? It did not appear anyone else wishes to speak. So that will be the end of our work session. So with that, we are adjourned at 7:49 p.m.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a great night.
Good night.